you think no one notices, and you think it's hidden, and you think you've tucked it away so neatly that it can't be seen. But the thing is, shame does not stay quiet, even when you stay quiet. Shame has a tendency to leak. It echoes. It shows up in the spaces between worlds. It's it's in the way that you laugh at your own pain. It's in the way that you brush off compliments like they sting. It shows up in the way that you disappear from conversations that seem to get too close. You see, shame speaks, even when your mouth is closed. And the thing is, she hears it as well. I mean, they all do. It's there's this subtle sound that shame has. Shame doesn't always scream. Um, Sometimes it actually shrinks, and it shrinks in your body language. It softens your voice. It makes you fold in on yourself without even realizing it. See, you may make yourself smaller. I mean, not physically per se, but emotionally, and so you don't interrupt and you don't offer. You don't ask for what you actually need, and so you become silent, not out of peace, but out of self-punishment. Because deep down, shame says you don't deserve to take up space. And so you don't. But here's how silence becomes this mask. Silence, silence can look like composure, like maturity, or like calm. But sometimes silence is armor. It's the wall that you hide behind when the fear of being truly seen feels too dangerous. And so you've learned to measure your words, you've learned to manage impressions, you've learned how to say just enough to get by without ever really revealing yourself. But silence doesn't make the shame go away. It just pushes it deeper down, it suppresses it more. And the people who are closest to you, the ones who love you, the ones who are close to you can still hear it. They feel the distance, they feel the guardedness, they feel the weight that you won't name yourself. Because shame is loud, especially in a quiet room. And then there's a tendency where shame becomes like the third person in the room. See, you might be sitting beside her, right? You're nodding, you're smiling, you're listening, but part of you is somewhere else. And that part of you seems to be bracing for judgment. It's scanning for signs of rejection. It's preparing to be abandoned, just in case, right? Because shame has taught you that love is not safe, that being known leads to being hurt, that vulnerability is something that you pay for in pain. So even when she's present, even when she's kind, even when she says, I love you, shame continues to whisper, if she really knew you, she would not stay. And so you stay silent. You hold your breath, you smile, and hope that it's enough to keep her close. But that silence, it doesn't protect the relationship. It actually tends to choke the relationship. The distance that she can't explain, you see, she may not be able to name it per se. She might say things like, "It feels like you're really not here," or "I just don't feel connected to you," or "I feel like I'm reaching for you and nothing's actually coming back." And you might not understand because you're there and you're not yelling, you're not leaving, but the silence it creates is its own form of absence, right? And shame makes you emotionally unavailable long before you ever walk out that door. See, you haven't left though, have you? But you're also not fully there either. And eventually she feels like she's dating a ghost. You might be present in body, but you're absent in spirit. But here's what shame teaches you to believe. Shame has its own curriculum, if you will. It teaches you that you're not enough. You're not smart. enough, you're not strong enough, you're not desirable enough. It teaches you that your needs are a burden and that your feelings are too much, that your voice is better off quiet. So you mute yourself and you minimize your pain and you apologize for taking up space. And so you turn the volume down on your life until you forget what it even sounds like to be real. And it kind of works, sort of. You you avoid conflict, you avoid vulnerability, you avoid rejection, but you're also avoiding intimacy, right? You're also avoiding joy. You're avoiding the experience of being loved as you are instead of as you perform. Because shame doesn't just isolate you from other people, it actually isolates you from yourself. And there's this freedom from fear that actually means speaking up anyway. See, you don't have to silence your shame for it to stop running your life. Hey, you just have to stop giving it the microphone, if you will. You have to you have to stop letting it make the decisions. And you have to stop letting it actually dictate what you say, how you act, who you allow yourself to actually be in reality. See, freedom from fear does not mean that you never feel ashamed. It just means that you stop letting the shame decide your story. It means that you notice the lie and you choose the truth anyway. It means that you hear the voice that says you're not worthy and you still speak up anyway. It means that you feel the pull to disappear and you stay present anyway. See, that's what freedom actually looks like, right? It's not it's not the absence of fear per se, it's the refusal to be ruled by fear. But there's a way to break the cycle from silence to experiencing self-respect. You don't break shame with shouting, but you break shame with honesty, with small truths that are spoken aloud, with one sentence at a time that says, I don't feel okay, or I'm afraid I'm not enough, or I've been pretending and I don't want to pretend anymore. And so you break shame by refusing to carry it alone, right? By choosing connection over concealment. See, you don't need a perfect speech. You don't need all the right words. You just need to stop hiding yourself because the moment that you bring shame into the light, it starts to lose its power. Shame, see, thrives in the shadows. It thrives in being secret, but it shrinks under the truth. And healing doesn't mean loudness, it means being present. And some of the strongest healing does not look like screaming from a rooftop. It looks like sitting across from someone that you love and saying, I've I've been afraid to show you who I really am. It looks like telling the truth even when your voice feels shaky. It looks like crying without apologizing for crying, right? It looks like letting someone say their piece and you're still there with them in the discomfort, even when part of you wants to push them away when it's your turn. See, healing doesn't always feel victorious. Sometimes healing feels terrifying. And that fear is a sign that you're on the right path. Because fear is the companion of vulnerability. And vulnerability is the doorway to real love. But here's another lens to look through. Here's how she might be experiencing your shame. See, she might not actually know what it is, but she feels it, doesn't she? She feels it when you shrug her affection off, when you sidestep the compliments, when you act like her love is a mistake, like eventually she'll see the real you and she'll walk away. So she sees how you don't let her close, how you change the subject when the conversation gets too intimate, right? How your silence grows louder the more that she reaches for you. And eventually your silence feels like rejection, even if that's not what you meant. Even if all of you just wanted was to protect her from your broken parts. But that protection actually becomes isolation. And the very thing that you fear, like losing her, starts to actually become inevitable and a self-fulfilling prophecy because you won't let her really in. The risk that changes everything is this though. You see, you don't have to heal all your shame to be loved. And you don't have to stop hiding behind that. And you don't have to wait until you're fearless. But you do have to act even when you're scared. And that starts with a risk. The risk of showing up fully, the risk of being fully seen and still chosen, the risk of finally saying, this is me, I'm still growing, but I'm here, right? Because the love that you're craving, it can't reach the version of you that's always pretending to be okay, right? It can only reach you when you're open to it. See, you don't have to stay silent anymore. Um, there's nothing wrong with you for feeling shame. That's totally legitimate. There's nothing broken about having fear. There's nothing weak about not being okay. But there is a deeper truth too, and that is you don't have to stay stuck there. You can actually begin to speak, even if it's messy, even if your voice is shaky, even if all you can say is, I've been hiding. That's enough. I mean, that's the door. That's the door that's creaking open slowly. That's the first breath of fresh air after years that you've spent underwater. That's the first crack in your armor. Not because you're lost, but because you're finally ready to win something that is better. So this is what freedom feels like. It's not the absence of fear, and it's not perfection, but it's the freedom to ask, the freedom to speak, the freedom to express, the freedom to feel, the freedom to be real, even when you're still healing. That's the invitation of integrity. That's the birthplace of intimacy. It's not about waiting until you're flawless, and it's it's more so about actually showing up when you are still in your messy state, but you're honest and you're discovering basically that love can actually meet you there. Not for the mask that you're wearing, not for the silence that you've been performing, but for the you that you've been burying beneath the shame this whole time. And when you let that part of you actually start to breathe, when you let that part of you speak, something incredible happens. And that is the shame diminishes, it gets quieter, and your life gets louder. Not louder in volume per se, but louder in truth, louder in expressions of love, louder in the ways that finally start to feel alive for you again. Let me give you a final reflection on this one. What if today is the first day that you stop hiding? What if this is your invitation to lay silence down, to put the mask down, and to tell your truth? Even just one piece of it. Even just enough to remind yourself that you still exist underneath the shame, that you're still worthy of being cared for and loved, not when you're perfect, but especially when you're imperfect. So, let me ask you, has shame ever made you go quiet? Have you felt robbed by shame? Have you ever felt invisible, not because no one cared, but because you were too afraid to be seen? I would love to hear your experience. Let me know in the comments how it went for you. Not for the attention and not for sympathy, no, but for someone else who feels exactly what you're feeling and needs to know that they're not alone. See, your voice could be the very thing that breaks someone else's silence. And that's powerful. So, let's make honesty louder than shame, shall we? And there's a tie in here that I want to tell you about. See, today's episode flows straight from the heart of what freedom from fear is really all about. It's not about never being scared again. Um, it's more about choosing integrity and truth anyway, in the midst of it. See, each of us is carrying shame that we didn't ask for, but none of us have to keep carrying it in silence. See, freedom is not a destination. It's a practice, and it starts with one honest word at a time. So, I would love to hear your experience down in the comments below, and I'll read each one. But for this moment, let me just say thank you for having the courage to listen through this and to consider this weighty topic with me. You got this.